So you've got yourself a Namco Classic Collection PCB and you're looking to run it on a standard jammer cab, something like an Egret 2 or equivalent. So we put it in, we turn it on, and this happens. The upside down image is less than ideal. Luckily, the fabulous FrancoB's has come up with a solution in the form of his new Yoke flip kit. As with all of Franco's gear, it's built beautifully, it's simple to install, and it sits neatly inside the control panel. Taking a closer look at the leads, these essentially reverse the polarity of the horizontal and vertical deflection to allow the image to be flipped as needed. The Swan Princess pink lead plugs into CN501 on the chassis, and then the Kermit green plugs into the existing cable after it has been unplugged. The other set of cables control the vertical deflection, with the white lead plugging into CN401 on the chassis, and then the black lead plugging into the existing cable once that has been removed from the chassis. A quick look at the double pole double throw switches. Before installing, I would position both to the left. It saves too much flickery of the switches down the road, meaning when the switches are positioned left, the image will be flipped. In terms of the Namco PCB, that means the correct way. With the switches positioned right, the image will be default. So to really kick things off with the install, this kit is of course going inside an Egret 2, I would open up the control panel and then position the switch box towards the back of this. This helps to anchor the leads when we're going round the back in the chassis next, and also fitting the leads and then trying to position the box after this is a real faff and probably best avoided. Round the back of the cab, with the door open, this is of course the chassis. Yours will look identical to this or very similar. We need to remove the 4 screws holding this up before we start to install the leads. It's worth noting at this stage, because this video is by nature somewhat dry, I have decided to balance my chassis atop these precariously stacked books teetering inside the cabinet to provide an element of excitement to proceedings. This is not, however, a mandatory part of the install. Remove these 2 screws on the wings of the chassis, along with 2 screws in the same spot the other side, allowing us access to install the leads. To the right of the chassis, you can see the leads from the front control panel pushed through and slung over, ready to install. Certainly not the most aesthetically pleasing shot, but a top-down view of the chassis with 2 arrows in Egret pink showing you the leads which you will need to unplug from the board. Another top-down view of the chassis here, slightly clearer. This is not mine, but comes from Emphatic's site, so much credit to him. I have doctored this very slightly just to match up to the colours of Franco's leads. You can see there the image on the left, the circle is black, indicating it's the black and white leads that we need. And then we've gone pink and green on the right hand side, once again tying into the leads on Franco's kit. When it comes to installing the leads on the chassis, I've tended to unplug this one first. The bile yellow and turd brown, looks like number 4 on the Bristol stool chart. I'll then connect the black pin leads from the kit directly to the plug I just removed, before plugging the white lead from the same pairing into the chassis board. I also like to add a cable tie here, just to keep things neat and components out of the way of one another. Many congratulations, we are done with installing our first lead. From here I move slightly right and down the chassis, removing this plug from the board. Next I take the green pin connectors from the kit and I plug that into the lead I've just removed. Finally I take the pink lead in this pairing and I plug it into the space where I've just removed the large grey connector with the blue and red cables from. It's worth noting that plugging this connector into the chassis can be a little bit tougher, so may require a bit more elbow grease. And that's it, you're done. You've installed your FrancoB's Yoke flip kit. You just need to screw the chassis back onto the cabinet with those 4 screws we took off in the first instance. A final look at the chassis with all the wiring installed and screwed back in place. You'll also notice that due to Franco's design, the white braiding hangs neatly out of sight. A final view of the switch box underneath the control panel. You can see that I've cable tied the white braiding in place to the frame of the chassis. You don't need to do this, it's really just for neatness. Equally, there are Velcro pads underneath the feet of the switch box. You can use these to stick somewhere on your cabinet. I've not needed to do this, since the weighting of the box combined with the cables means it sits in place without the need for any additional stickery pokery. The most important part, turning the cab back on, and we can finally play a game out of 6 the correct way. Thanks Franco, you're a star.